Hello and welcome to AdaPulse, the channel that brings you all the news, some of the catalyst proposals and some of the emerging projects that are coming through in the Cardano ecosystem. Now, today's video is based on this article, which is the basics of staking, how to make sense of Cardano staking. Now, that was an article by Flantoshi, one of the ghostwriters for the AdaPulse team, and I've had my pool since Shelley launch and even had a pool briefly on the ITN, if people still remember what that is. Now, before we crack on with the content, please remember to click the like button, get that bell ping to get notified as soon as we have content available, and hit that subscribe button and do comment. Definitely want to hear what you guys are thinking, so definitely I want to see some comments below. Now it's time to crack on with the content. I'm Josh, now let's go. If you've seen our video, how and why to take your ADA off exchanges, and are now sitting there staring at your wallet with your ADA balance looking back at you without quite knowing what to do about it, you're in the right place. In addition to the video I just mentioned, we also did a video on a basic guide on seed phrases and wallet organization to help you navigate through the world of self-custody of your own crypto in safety. Now, as much as we'd love to say delegate to one of our pools and that's it, but well, I don't think it's going to cut it these days. We don't want to trick you into delegating to us because there's no secret sauce to what makes a good stake pool, and is counter to what we're really trying to build here. If you delegate to any pool, we want you to do so because you want to support what they are working on behind the mere fact of running a stake pool. For example, you might want to benefit from all the goodies that various pools offer, whether it be free NFTs, drip drop bonus, or earning tokens through an initial stake pool offering, known as an ISPO. So, in this article, we will be focusing on the basics of staking and how to find a good stake pool for you. The basics. Before we tackle anything else, we have to explain stake pools briefly. So in short, stake pools are a collection of computing devices or nodes that together can process transactions and receive rewards for doing so. Currently, there are over 3,200 stake pools. I don't even have that many followers on Twitter, so even I can't keep up with them all. Normal users can tell the network that they wish to assign their wallet holdings to a stake pool operator, or SPO as they're known. Remember, you're just telling the protocol to assign to a stake pool. No money is ever leaving your wallet, and call it out if someone asks you to do otherwise. But anyway, so now we've assigned to a stake pool. This is what we call staking. And how much ADA a stake pool has assigned to it affects the frequency of how often they can process transaction blocks and therefore receive rewards. But I can't stress this enough. More blocks doesn't mean more rewards for delegators. As an incentive for an SPO is to attract delegation, we earn a small percentage of your rewards to cover our labour and expenses for running all the nodes required and keeping them up to date and online sort of thing. So it bears saying, though, that the system is designed so that over a long enough time, all stake pools give the same return on investment, as statistics always prove true over time. Now take a look at all these stake pools on pool.pm. Most pools are large, but if you look at the ROS, that's the return on stake, they're actually all roughly the same. Some are surprisingly low, actually, but I mean, that can be for a variety of different reasons, like a run of bad luck, for example. So not necessarily a bad pool. But moving on, I'm going to stress this again. Cardano staking does not require you to give up control of your ADA and carries no real risk for you, other than the risk already associated with self-custody. But like I said, we have videos to help you with that, so check those videos out that I've mentioned earlier. Staking is essentially telling the network that you would like an SPO to receive more blocks and thus have a higher influence on Cardano as a whole. How seriously the network takes this request depends on how much ADA is in your wallet. In order to start, you have to spin up your wallet. Since you're a newbie, chances are you'll be using Yoroi Lite wallet, as that's the default option. It's the one that's likeliest to be recommended to you. Daedalus is another option, but it is what's called a full node wallet. So it sends transactions directly into the chain without the need of a centralized party. So basically adds an extra layer of security, but it does take a long time to sync with the blockchain. If you're the paranoid type, stick with either Yoroi or Daedalus, as they're the official recognized Cardano wallet. I'll include links in the description below. There's quite a few other wallets out there that are faster or have extra features, but I advise you to do your own research on them before entering your seed phrase. So in this example, we'll use Yoroi as it's the easiest out of the two examples. So firstly, you need to navigate to the staking center. I don't know how these pools are ranked, as it makes no sense to me at all. It says ordered by score, but there seems to be no info on what that is or how it's obtained. The next part can seem scary, but don't worry, most of it is bollocks. There's a bunch of different metrics, a huge list of literally thousands of pools to choose from, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed. Nobody would blame you if you do get frustrated and just pick, the first one, or even just at random. Wouldn't make too much difference to your rewards, but many pools are running side projects funded by their pool. They tend to have low stake because their time is spent on building a dApp or making NFTs or informing the community with news articles and vlogs. But picking a high listed pool at random is unfortunately what caused certain pools and their sequels to grow gigantic, despite having no marketing or anything particularly unique about them. Fortunately, that influence is slowly diminishing as people are getting savvier, though early and stupid advantages, like literally being the first on the list, is obviously still quite an important factor. Now, in the following sections, we will address each one of the metrics and explain their importance in determining the right pool that's for you. But before we do that, it's worth mentioning that when you first delegate with a wallet, it can take up to 20 days before you see any rewards. After that, whenever you decide to switch to another pool, it takes one whole epoch before the stake becomes active in that pool. So basically, if you switch your delegation now, you wait until the whole of the next epoch is complete before you start earning rewards from the new pool. But don't worry about losing rewards. You still carry on earning in the previous pool until the switch is complete. So there's no gap in rewards at all. Some may find this a bit annoying. It's allegedly done to give SPOs at least some stability from week to week. It's also there as to make switching between stake pools easy, but not an arbitrary choice that can be changed at a moment's notice. This is why stake pool tracking websites like AdaPulse.org and Pool, you'll see two metrics, active stake and live stake. The active stake is what is currently assigned to the stake pool, and the live stake is what the stake would be if there wasn't a transition period. Pool.pm, probably the one I use the most, only shows live stake, but is a much more aesthetically pleasing and shows details of all the blocks and live feed of minted and sent NFTs. I hope that gives a good background, so now we can move on and explain the different metrics. Stake pools. This might be the most obvious bit, as it seems like there's just a stake pool's name, but don't be fooled. There is some nuance to be found here. First, there's the ticker. This is the text generally within brackets, typically 3 to 5 characters long. It's the shorthand way of finding a pool and works like a stock ticker, if that's a world you're familiar with. Then there's the grayed out alphanumeric string of text beside the name. This is known as the pool ID and is a code that's meant to showcase the provenance of a pool. In other words, due to the permissionless nature of the system, you can have pools with the exact same name and ticker, but what you can't copy is the pool ID. It's the identifier of a pool. This pool ID is randomly generated at the time of registering a pool. But also, some of the clever ones out there have manipulated it with brute force. They've brute forced their pool ID to stick with certain chosen characters at the beginning. For example, check this out. Marcus from Clio 1s, that's his ticker, but his pool ID is this. Now check out the first 6 characters of that pool ID. This is a combination of his ticker. It's got Ada in there. It's got the 1, as in Cardano's going for number 1. And of course, the obvious bit is the homage to the Cicada 3301. That's the unknown entity that was creating puzzles between 2012 and 2014. An SPO should have their pool ID and BEC32. So BEC32 is another version of pool ID without going further into it. They should have both clearly displayed on their website somewhere. While not common, scammers have taken advantage of high-in-demand pools by pretending to be them, but they're quickly sniffed out by the community. If in doubt, ask an SPO. We're all here to help. Mainly because we want your delegation, so bear that in mind as well. But anyway, always check social media and whatnot to be sure that you have the right ticker. And if there are similar ones, refer to the official pool ID, which should be easily found somewhere. ROA and ROS. ROA is an acronym that means Return on ADA, or sometimes known as ROS, which is Return on Stake. This is the average rate of annual return calculated from a lifetime of the pool's performance, although some sites also show the monthly average too. Over a long enough time, stake pools are designed to average out the exact same as every other pool. However, the frequency at which blocks are minted and users are rewarded for their stake is dependent on the amount of ADA associated within the pool, which is the stake. Small pools suffer from what I call small pool volatility. I haven't heard anyone call it that before, so I'm owning it. That's mine. I came up with that. But yeah, small pools generate blocks infrequently, but you get bigger rewards when they do, as their rewards are based on their predicted blocks. And if their predicted block is 1 but get 3, that's a 300% performance. And the large pools don't fluctuate that much, but frequent rewards are guaranteed. So there's a strategy right there for some people. If you're planning on moving your ADA between wallets quite a lot, then a large pool is better, as you're virtually guaranteed to mint blocks while you're there. On the other hand, a small pool is better if you're planning on staying for the longer term, because you might get lucky and get a larger yearly return, but at the same time, you're a bigger fish in a smaller pool. So your SPO will be more willing, to help you and has more time for you. It is also deemed, to many to be important to the decentralization of Cardano by spreading delegated ADA to as many pools as possible. The magic dividing line is around 1 million to 2 million ADA, as this gives you around 1 predicted block per epoch. Anything under that mints blocks more infrequently, while everything above that is likely to mint a block every epoch. Although, as it's random, remember that's still not guaranteed. So I've seen pools with 5, 6, 7 million who have had epochs without a block. So it can happen. It can happen. The expected return of pools will vary year by year, as will increasingly rely more on transaction fees than reserve disbursements. However, until then, the returns are fairly predictable. At the moment, the expected ROA is anywhere from 4.2% to 4.7%, but past performance is not indicative of future performance. You know, they may fail to update their node, for example, and miss all their blocks, or rotate some keys incorrectly. I mean, who knows? Put simply, any pool with ROA under that number is likely to outperform that benchmark if you're freshly delegating to them, provided that you stay with them and they don't go out of business, obviously. Conversely, if it's beyond that number, the pool is likelier to underperform for the foreseeable future until the ROA matches the predicted one. Share pool size. There are only ever going to be 45 billion ADA, so it's easily possible to calculate the percentage of the total supply that a stake pool represents. And this is what the share metric shows. The share percentage doesn't have any major use for the average user, so don't pay too much attention to that. The amount of there's ADA in a pool is the vital data. However, as many of you know, pools aren't infinitely scalable. While it's technically possible to keep putting an infinite amount of ADA into a pool, there's what's called a saturation point, and that's where the rewards of a pool start to decrease the further it goes over that point. We've covered saturation point in previous videos. But in short, the maximum size of a pool is around 66 million ADA. That's because there's something called the K parameter, which is set at 500. The K parameter is basically based on the amount of ADA staked, which is currently at around 33 billion. Divide that by 500 and you end up with 66 million ADA. Don't feel the need you need to delegate to a pool anywhere near that size. The one exception being when there's like an initial stake pool offering, or ISPO as they're called, but that's for another day. But do make sure that the company or person running clearly says it doesn't affect the token distribution. Best bet is to join their Telegram group or something, because even if they're not helping, other people in that group will. But anyway, my point is that if you join a saturated pool, or it becomes saturated, your rewards start to decrease. So if you want to keep it simple and only focus on your rewards, just keep an eye on the pool size. It's just a question of how much you care about regular rewards, really. Costs. Here's the most contentious of the bunch. Given that running stake pools requires both specialised equipment and technical knowledge, SPOs receive a reward for their services every epoch that they mint blocks. From the user side, you don't have to do anything, as the fee is already deducted by the protocol. These costs are a combination of two things. A fixed fee of 340 ADA. It has been announced that they will be lowering this in the future. And a variable percentage-based fee, typically ranging between 0 and 3%, sometimes 5%. The controversial aspects depends on who you ask. On the one hand, some say that the fixed fee should be abolished altogether, as it has an effect on the received rewards for people delegating to small pools, while its supporters say that the fixed fee helps small pools cover some of the running costs of a stake pool, which ain't cheap. Then we have the percentage-based fee. This is what trips up people most. When newbies enter this space, they're just looking for the lowest fee available. Screw everything else. This is an understandable mindset when you view every stake pool as infinitely replaceable. But I'll tell you now, it don't mean shit. When pools get desperate, they often lower their fees to 0 in an effort to market their pool. But let's go back a bit and look at what these percentage changes make to your rewards. You have 0% pools running less ROA than pools with a much higher percentage. The ones with a higher percentage are actually more sustainable too, because this will never change and their fees are all covered. But rewards aside, you shouldn't view stake pools as infinitely replaceable, or should I say fungible, but as kind of like community hubs or like GoFundMe projects type thing. Like, what project is your SPO working on? What are you helping them to fund? What are they doing to help make your ADA more valuable? I myself like to focus on outreach, obviously, with these videos, But others are building DAOs, NFT projects, and a range of tools that are for the benefit of the whole community. And they're completely open source. And to be fair, setting up a basic stake pool is pretty easy, especially now. But the complexity comes in when you add layers of security and stuff like that. It does take some effort, but still, you don't have to be a genius to figure it all out. The broader point is that you should view holding and staking ADA as a responsibility that goes beyond just squeezing an extra percent. Because, as I said a minute ago, you have no idea where to get that extra percent from anyway, because it doesn't seem to make any difference. Support people who you think are doing a good job for the ecosystem, and ADA itself will end up being far more valuable over time as a consequence. Pledge. This metric is typically seen as how much skin in the game people have. It's how much ADA stake an SPO has committed to their own pool. There is a parameter called a naught, which is meant to increase the pool's rewards in relation to pledge, but it's so low it literally makes no difference at this point in time. It has been argued that the reason it isn't a particularly punishing metric is to incentivize new entrants and people from lower means, like people from a third world, to be able to participate without more barriers to entry. And as pledge doesn't matter, this incentivizes people with a powerful marketing arm to open many pools to saturation, as they don't really need to show any extra skin in the game, as it were. There's a whole discussion around this particular metric, different propositions on how it could work, like an S-curve rather than a linear one, but I don't think we need to dig into that right now. Blocks. We're in the blockchain and we don't know what a block is. So what is a block? A block is a bundle of transactions that are being logged on the network. An SPO's role is to collect these transactions and group them into a block. When a block gets minted, it gets added to the blockchain, which is basically a collection of blocks that are organized chronologically. Essentially, a chain of blocks, which is a blockchain. This is what keeps the network operational and active, so SPOs get rewarded for their service, and a portion of these rewards then get passed on to the delegators as a reward for supporting the network. Remember, more blocks doesn't necessarily mean more money, like we discussed a second ago with the small pool volatility. Conclusion. Find someone who you think is doing something cool while being trustworthy, reliable, honourable and fair. Then stake with them. This will not only help support their own projects and thereby benefit Cardano as a whole, but you will help decentralization. Ideally, help small pools that you think are good for Cardano. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to stake with multiples, because it's a very nuanced topic. Just remember that Cardano is a proof of stake blockchain where each ADA holder is a co-owner in the network, and you should behave with that in mind. Don't think about short-term gains, but long-term value. Cardano aims to make everyone meaningful participants and beneficiaries of the network. So as we come to an end of today's session, now before we do go, please do remember to like, subscribe and hit that bell notification so you get notified as soon as we've got content available. And please do share this as far and wide as you can. We want to educate as many people as possible. That's getting their crypto off an exchange, get into self-custody, and in a proof of stake system like ours, we can get them staking. And so please do leave any comments below as well, because we would love to hear your feedback too. I'm Josh from AdaPulse, and that's it for today. Thank you.